Hello guys, really appreciate the comments that you support me with. But if you found my content useful, then my content is nothing in comparison to this new series and to this new content. I have to be honest, I was not aware of the book of that pawn structures that we have talked about the isolating couple of days and weeks ago. However, out of curiosity, I was there to check out the author's other books and I found this one, Material Imbalances. Such a great book. Consisted of 3 chapters. Chapter 2 is about material imbalances of the same kind, like bishop versus knight. This is a material imbalance, but 3 versus 3. And opposite colored bishop, for example. It's again of the same kind. Chapter 3, it's about material from another kind. For example, exchange sacrifice, material imbalance, and you need to add more dynamics there. But chapter 2 and chapter 3 to be coming. This is chapter 1. It's about preliminaries. I'm not sure if I pronounce it even right, but it means a pre-request, something as introduction. And in this introduction, the author mentioned 9 principles which are a game changer. They are game changers. Let's see. Principle number 1. Principle number 1. In life and in chess, we have heard of the concept quality is important than quantity. This is right. And even in chess, quality of a piece is much important than how many pieces do you have. But in terms of imbalance, quantity is better. So principle 1, quantity is better than quality under the umbrella of imbalances. What do I mean by that? See this position. As I don't want to talk too much, I want to show you as many examples as possible to explain. In this position, if you think about material, then 3 pawns to 3 pawns, if we remove these together, and the bishop versus the bishop, then black has a knight, a bishop, 2 pawns. If we counted, then 3, 3, 1, 1, it's all 8, and the queen is 9 points. So material-wise, white is better. But again, quantity is better than quality, which means in this position, black is better. And this is actually actual game. And Nihal Sarin was playing a classical game versus Ravi Tija. And yeah, it's actually much better. Why? And we will talk about this in next principles. Because the quantity are well placed. This is super important. Yes, quantity, but one queen can be organized. You can improve the queen easily. But when you have 3 or 4 pieces versus the queen, then the 4 pieces need to be in a good place. The game went on and Nihal Sarin played d4, and after h4 you cannot take, as your knight might be some sort of misplaced. So h6, f3, d3, and now d2 is coming, and the point is to exchange, but after bishop to b3 the queen cannot be actually prevented. H takes g5, H takes g5, queen e3, and now c2. The threat is bishop b2 followed by c1 queen. Nothing you can do nothing about. King g2, king h6 first, in order not to allow queen takes g5, and after queen takes b3, because white realized there is nothing to stop bishop b2 followed by c1 queen. So the game went on, and black was actually much better, almost winning, like according to the engines, -2. But you need to work a bit, However, Nihal Sarin, all of a sudden, he made a huge blunder, and now in this position after queen c6, he has many winning moves like king f1, queen c1, queen d3, whatever, but he played queen d2, and the problem with the queen d2 is that the king actually is stalemated, so you need just to get rid of your queen. This is a draw, this is a draw, this is a draw. Nihal Sarin, for whatever reason, missed that, and he played, or his opponent played queen e6, and the game ended up in a draw. If you go this way, then queen c8 again, and actually you cannot avoid the draw. You cannot avoid the repetition. Or if you take the queen, it's a stalemate. Also, this is actually a very famous game. It's a game between Magnus and Nepo. And the game actually, in the game, Magnus had 2 rooks versus the queen. Maybe 2 rooks and a pawn, but still the king is not that safe. So it's not an easy game, especially with the bishop and the pressure on e3 pawn. However, Magnus here found this idea, which is rook takes f7 and then rook b7 and now rook takes a7. And after rook takes a7, white actually, according to the computer, is slightly better. However, white is playing for the 2 results, and this is something we're going to explain later. And again, quantity better than quality. For example, now the quality of the queen itself controls too many pawns, but having a rook and a knight and 2 pawns can work together, then quantity matters more. And the game actually went on very briefly, like it's a pretty long game, so I don't want to explain it, not to waste time, to focus on another principles. So moving backward and forward, and actually Magnus was not in a hurry. As you can see, he pushed a pawn after maybe 30 moves of maneuvering here, there, here, there, here, and Nepo is getting tired and tired. And by the way, this game lasts almost 8 hours. It started at 4 p.m. and exceed the 12 a.m. time. And after queen h1, rook d7, and again, do not hurry, like rook d3, king e3, king f2. By the way, we remember this example as we will use it for a later principle. Rook to d5, improving the rook, e5 now, after how many moves, I don't know. And now the king improved, the knight improved, and slowly but surely, white is winning after knight g7 check, nothing to stop, e7, e8 queen, as the promotion is for sure. So this is principle number 1. I'm not sure if you start feeling the new concepts that you're gaining and you understand them. I'm trying to simplify them, and this is actually my duty here. And I would like and would appreciate your likes, your comments, your subscribing. That will mean the world to me. Now, principle number 2. Principle number 2 says heavy pieces, and this is actually the problem with a heavy piece. Heavy pieces, mainly rooks and queen, need targets. Without targets, it's not easy to have heavy pieces. Because as we have seen previously in the Magnus's game and in the Nihatsurian's game, the queen can't do anything because nothing I can attack. Let's see an example. Here we go. For example, in this position. Believe it or not, material-wise, white has a knight and a pawn for the queen. But this position, because the queen lacks target, the heavy piece lacks targets, it's just a draw. You can do nothing. Your king cannot play, and you cannot actually find a way to stop my king moving and move my knight away of the protection of the f5 square. So you go here, I go here. Whatever you do, I just keep moving with the king around, you know? You cannot stop that. So this is a very, very important principle when it comes to material imbalance. Principle number 3. This principle actually is a very important. It says lighter pieces need coordination. So whenever you want to create a material imbalance, and this is something we're going to talk about in chapter 3, the author says family 2 anyways, which is the imbalances that's not equal, that's not the same, not from the same family, like sacrificing an exchange, having more minor pieces than heavy pieces, having a knight and a bishop or a bishop versus a rook, or having a knight and a bishop versus a rook and 1 or 2 pawns. That heavy pieces needs to be coordinated. Wait. I've heard about the coordination, but I don't fully understand it. Examples, 2 examples to make it understandable for you. In this position, white has 2 pieces versus a rook. But the problem with white's position is the heavy pieces or the light pieces are not coordinated together, are not working together to achieve the same goal, which is mainly to stop the passer or whatever the goal is. But if we change the location of the pieces with the same pawn structure, and this is, by the way, an example of my own. I'm not copy and paste everything. Whenever I need or I see some needed clarifications, I added them. So these two examples won't find in the book. So now, in this position, the knight and the bishop can work together. How? Like, for example, after a4, just bishop c5. And now I am blocking the pawn. And is this position equal? Yes. How did you know? I see the bar. I see the evaluation bar. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. But the evaluation bar says it's equal. But as George Orwell or something, I forgot, like in the Animal Farm, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. So such a position is not equal, and we will discuss that in a future principle in this video. But this is a coordination between pieces. So light pieces need coordination. Principle 4. Material gains mean nothing without a home. What is a home? This is actually when you have, again, sacrificing an exchange or two pieces for a rook, having lighter pieces. If you have a lighter pieces, you need two things. First, you need to have a save king. Your king safety must be included. You cannot create imbalances with your king being weak. Because sometimes, if the position is balanced in terms of pieces, like you have the same pieces as your opponent, rook versus rook, knight versus knight, bishop versus bishop, sometimes it's okay or acceptable to have a weak king. But with material imbalance, you cannot create that, especially if you are the one who has the light pieces, even if with the heavy pieces. Do not create imbalances. Do not sacrifice an exchange. Do not exchange a knight for the bishop or a bishop for a knight or opposite color bishop even if your king safety is not included in the equation. This is super important, maybe the most important principle. Number 2, you need to have coordination. Pieces must work together. Examples. This position, because the king safety is there, though material wise, black has a knight and a pawn, only 4 versus the queen 9, though this position is equal. This position has no improvement. Black can just go king g7, king f7, king f7, king g7, here and there and here. The only gate to enter, to penetrate, is h4, and h4 is controlled with the knight, so you have nothing to do. You might attack g6, but easily protected with the queen along the g5, for example. Maybe you need to watch out for such a sacrifice, like queen d1 maybe, and then queen a4 ideas. The point is, if you take b5, you take a6. Yeah, this is the only thing, though it's still equal, yeah? After b4 and then you queen, I queen, it's again equal. And maybe black is, or white is taking risks here. Because the king is safe, and the pieces are coordinated, the knight is involved into the game. If we compare this position, this position has a home, consisted of a safe king and pieces are playing together. No home means this position. Is this a king safety? No. Though, material wise, if you think about it, it's 9 versus 9. But because black created imbalances with too many targets, with not a safe king, this is not a home. And this is a losing position for black. Simply queen a5. And now the pawn cannot be defended. If you defend this pawn, you will lose another one. For example, king g7. If you push c6, you will lose the pawn this way. So after king g7, queen takes b5, first pawn gains, or first pawn just disappeared, and slowly the king actually involved in the equation. Queen check, and next king f6, and actually mates will be there. So again, home is very important. Principle 5. Pawn distribution matters. So whenever you want to create imbalances, you need to think about your pawns and the ability to create passers out of these pawns? Is there the ability or no? Because pawns that have the ability to create passers is going to be, or going to encourage you to create the imbalance. Because wait a second, I will sacrifice that exchange, but I will have a passer on the other side, for example, or I will support my pass pawn, which my opponent going to be busy with his rook defending, so I'm good to sacrifice. Example, like we talked about one passer. If it's two passers, now black is a piece down, which is a great bishop. This is a great bishop, but he has two passers. And the way to win this game is just to bring the game to the king to f3 and win. Let me show you how. Like rook d1, rook h4 first, and then the king is coming. Because you cannot go king h5. Why rook h4? Because you cannot go king h5 actually in this position without losing this pawn, yeah? Which is something you don't want to do. And after king here, maybe taking, because we have rook g8 and take the rook, yeah? So after rook d1, rook h4 first, keeping this pawn protected, and the king improved. Even here, like even here, he allowed bishop f6. It doesn't matter, because pawns are very important, and they said two passers on the third as black, third rank, two connected passers on the third rank is better than a rook. So it's simply king g4. You take my rook, I take with the king, and now bring the king to the game. Because I wanted my king to f3, I don't want to lose the pawn. Rook h8 first. Rook e2, king f3. And black tried to trick him with this actual idea. You cannot take, you lose your rook. But simply rook h4. It's just a waiting move, and now white is zigzagged. If you move your rook away, then you lose the e3 pawn. And how to continue? Simply take this pawn, move the king away, book, and 4 connected passers, which is actually huge, yeah? And this is completely winning, minus 10. So again, pawns matters. This position, it's a game of the author actually. And the author said the last move for my opponent was c4. And he was intending to play knight d5 followed by f4. So for example, if b6, knight d5, you cannot take the pawn. As f4, you will lose a piece. And even if you don't do that, like for example, king here, yeah, probably e7 first, threatening again f4, knight c7 check, and then win the game. For example, if you go a6, there's this idea of f4, you move your knight away, check, and the queen cannot be avoided. So he sensed that, and he played knight takes c4. And why did he play knight takes c4? It's just an exchange of knights, but he will go b5 first, and then d5. And now after d5, if the rook moved away, the knight will be taken, so the knight needs to sacrifice. And when you think about this position, actually it's 5 versus 5. Black has 0 material advantage. But the imbalance created here is with the pawn structure. And when you think about the pawns distribution, again, as principle 5 says, pawn distribution matters. And here, if you think about these 3 versus this one, so a potential connected passers might be created. While if you think about the pawn formation on the king side, you have only one passer, you cannot create 2. Because if you go f4, f5, you cannot go f6, I will take, or will take. So still, the ability to create 2 passers is with black, not with white. And in 8 moves, black won the game. Just c4, rook c5, c3, c2, and after rook c1, b4, a5, a4, b3, b2, and you win the game. f4, king takes e6, and the pawns are actually just, you will lose them. And now the only move to stop c1 is to go with the rook, but actually you don't have time, as I do have f5. If you try to bring the king to the game, actually you will be not in time. Like after b3, take king here, b2 simply wins the game, because after rook c2, I could simply go b1 queen, and or maybe check first if you would like to, but b1 queen, you will win the rook for sure, and you will win the game. And maybe this is also winning, yeah, because again, this passer is not only queening, it's also putting your king away of the game. My king is coming, and take these pawns, and this pawn will be a queen very soon. So this is principle number 5. Principle number 6. To make a draw, trade pawns. To make a draw, trade pawns. Why this is important actually? Because we all know, and I do believe like 90%. Please, if you don't know, feel free to write in the comments, so I will maybe create a different video for you in order to keep up with us. Yeah, this is super important, guys. If you don't know the following information: king and knight versus king, draw. King and bishop versus king, draw. King and two knights versus king, I'm saying without pawns, yeah? King and two knights versus king, draw. Rook and knight versus rook, draw. Rook and bishop versus rook, again draw. Most of you, I'm sure, most of you don't know how. If you are interested in knowing how, and by far you watched already 20 minutes of my video, then first of all, thank you very much for staying this far. But write me in the comments, and I promise I will do one for you very soon, maybe the next one. So just write me in the comments and I will put it in my priorities, yeah? And many cases to draw, like rook versus knight, rook versus bishop, draw. Again, queen versus two pieces, draw. Like queen versus two pieces is a draw. Queen and bishop versus queen, draw. Queen and knight versus queen, draw. So all of these, that's why this is actually a very important principle. To make a draw, trade pawns. Adding one single pawn will make everything looks different. For example, this position is a draw. There is no way you can penetrate. Because the only idea I have seen, or the only idea that I can think of, is to put the king on e8. And then attack the f7 pawn and win it. But the problem with actually this idea is that the pawn here cannot be protected and will be attacked, like knight h7. And by the way, this is a bad move, as this endgame is winning, you know? It's king f8, you can win the pawn for sure. King takes. So the only idea is for black to go here or here by the knight and losing the game. But I will simply go knight h7, keep going here and there, and this is actually a draw. But the same exact position, if we added two pawns for black, and one pawn for white, this is not a draw. Why this is not a draw? Because the rook has much stronger attacking ability than the knight defending these two pawns. And simply black will play, or white will play rook d8, then rook d7 attacking, probably rook 8 works as well. And now after a6, rook d6. By the way, watch out for forks, etc. And now b5. And on the other hand, the attacking side, or the side that is not looking for a draw, should not exchange pawns. So a5. And now we'll take this for sure. We'll come here, and then this pawn will bring the victory. Principle 7. Do not hurry, and in order not to make this video so long, go back to Magnus's game that we have already talked about and see how Magnus was too unhurry with his position, with the material imbalances, because he had a knight, a rook, and one or two pawns versus a queen, and he just kept maneuvering with a reason or without a reason. And after 20 moves, he pushed a pawn, and then 20 other moves, maneuvering, and then push a pawn. So, whenever you are in that case, do not hurry. Just like improve your position slowly, and prevent any source of counterplay. Principle 8. This is the probably most important principle, or the second most important principle after the home principle. Principle 8. It's equal, but it's not the same. What an idea, because actually we all kind of evaluation bar addicted. Like some of the viewers I know cannot watch a video if there is no evaluation bar. I want to know what is the computer saying. But there is actually something hidden. The computer is not a human. So there is no psychology there. So for example, if the computer says it's zeros, yeah? 0, 0, 0, 0. And you are the one defending and I am the one attacking. In actual game, in a real game, it's not actually zeros. I do have the advantage. Why? Because as I am attacking, I am asking questions. And I have the ability, most likely, to make inaccuracies. I'll make it work. Like, it's fine. Like, you might be slightly better if I created inaccuracies if I am the attacking side. But if you are the defensive side and you create inaccuracies, you might lose the game. That means I will spend 2 to 3 to 5 minutes with each move. Imagine that we're playing classical game. And I have the leverage to do that. Why? While you cannot do that. While you are, as a defender, needs to spend 7 to 8 minutes probably each move to survive and to keep the position equal. For example, we have this position. Computer says rook c8, 0, 0, 0, rook a6, 0, 0, 0, rook a7, 0, 0, 0. Nothing. Not even slight advantage. But there is something very important. And this is something I have read about in the book for Jonathan Rosen. It's called, and it's actually mentioned, and you might have heard of while commentating or commenting. White in this position, playing for the two results. What do I mean? I am, as white, playing either to draw this game or to win. But black is playing again for the two results. To draw this game or lose. Because the best chance is to take the pawn. Rook and knight versus a queen is a draw. And even though white has better chances to trick his opponent. And who's playing black is a Grandmaster. And he lost that game. So the game went this way. Because I am the one always who can push for more. Black is not a computer. Like, for example, after this he lost the game. Very normal move, like in order to activate the queen. He lost the game. So do not be tracked with the zeros of computer. And here again was the only move to survive queen a8, which is maybe not that tough to find, but again you will be asked for another only move later on, and you need to answer. So the zeros are just tricky. Yeah? Now queen e5 again, it's a bad move, as there is no way actually to stop me queening, trying so hard, but actually in vain. As rook d7 check, knight d4, rook d5 check, knight b5, rook d6 first, and then king b7, hoping to improve the pawn very soon. And the pawn actually is pushed, and just a couple of checks, and now c7, and now it's always or it's all about one single move, king a6, and after king a6 black resigned the game. The only check is from here, but now many moves actually, simply queen a7, or maybe even knight d6, as there will be no more checks, and a queen is coming. The last principle. Single pawns do not achieve much. This principle, guys, needs some explanation for later on. But this is actually the example that mentioned in the book. And the example says, this pawn does not matter that much. You're giving me the bishop pair for that pawn, but is there a potential improvement for that pawn? No. And I have checked actually, because this is an actual game played between Ilyanov with black pieces and Bakru with white pieces. Both players are above 2700. And guess what? Black won, as there is no improvement. So the point the writer or the author is trying to make here, do not create imbalances to win a pawn that can not do much. And what's interesting, this is kind of isolated. And we have talked about this pawn early on. Anyways, two bishops actually are great. And in the game, I like I mean, let me show you the game very quickly from the beginning, because I liked a nice idea. Very soon I will show you, like after 97 take, and now c5 actually was played, not c takes d5, as the pawn will be taken anyways. So queen b6 and exchanging pieces, and queen b4, and after bishop f5, bishop d3. For example, this is a very bad move, giving up the bishop pair. No, bishop d7. This is the move I liked from Ilyanov. And after h3, rook c8 first, queen d6 next, and a6 first, rook f e8, bishop f5. Now the bishop is improved, because bishop d3 I just simply can win the pawn. So after g3, rook takes c1, queen takes c1, And then rook to c8 attacking the queen, exchanging queens, because this is actually not a passer, this is a weakness now. Bishop f8 first, attacking the pawn, and the pawn is taken. And we are talking about, again, this position. Computer says it's slightly better, but it's actually much better and a huge advantage for black for three reasons. Reason one, you were the one who had the extra pawn, and now you are the one who's fighting for equality and fighting for the draw. And this is actually a very important psychological aspect, because we are a human. A poor man, if he's born poor, you know, you're poor or not poor, like say normal, like your situation, your financial situation is normal, you know, it's fine for you. When bad days came, it's kind of you can manage, yeah. But a very rich man, if all of a sudden he's fighting just to survive, he's working 24/7 to survive, it's very tough to accept. But a normal man, a poor man, it's very easy, because he's doing that every single day. But a rich man, not used to do that. You get the concept, right? So that's actually a very psychological advantage that black has in this position. And not very soon, but he managed actually to create a passer on the queen side, on the king side. Pawn is taken here, traded pawns here and there, but h3 pawn cannot be protected. And very soon after a5, white resigned the game, as at the end of the day, you need to sacrifice your knight with this pawn, and this pawn, luckily enough, has the same corner or the same color as the bishop actually on e1. So this is a very winning position. For example, if king c7, g4, at the end of the day you need to take, but the king will be coming. Black will try to make it harder, but just a single waiting move will help my king to improve. My king is improving, and now you need to move away. My king is improving, the pawn will be taken. Bishop here, push, and easily win this game. I know we're still not yet touching the imbalances like in a deep way. I understand. Still, we are on the surface. But I hope you find this information an eye-opening. I don't want to say this is eye-opening for me, no. But the way things are systemized and the way things are organized, they are organized in a way that now I see things clearer, I can say, yeah? You understand things in a different way, like in a textual way. It's already in the text. Now, as you know, like sometimes you understand something, but you cannot put it in words. You cannot explain it. Now, the things that you might already understood, now it's explained. Now you knew the reasons, yeah? I hope you find this useful. If you have watched this video so far, please write me a comment, as I will memorize your name and I will know that you're one of the warriors with our channel, as I do believe we have a bright future, as I am trying to create a content that's not there on YouTube, a content that needs time but brings value. And this is actually what I like, and this is what I want. I could easily bring a Magnus game fighting or sacrificing something and might get more views, more attention, maybe more subscribers. But this is not what I wanted to do. YouTube is full of these. But is YouTube having this kind of content? I doubt, and I will continue doing this. Again, guys, I really appreciate your nice comments, your nice words, and I read everything, and I read every single idea and every single word you're mentioning. So thanks again, and do not forget, subscribe, and this video or this book will take your game to another level. Weekly paces probably, or maybe less than that, will try to provide you with examples of these imbalances. Thanks for watching again. See you in another one, and have a nice one.